Hello everyone, welcome to my video. Today I have a little something special for you. This video is in a sense a little bit overdue, considering I've been using this camera now for around 4 months. And this camera that I'm speaking of is the Nikon Z6III. This review turned into a bit of a love letter, in a sense, to a camera that has exceeded my expectations and actually has met all my needs at the same time. I've tried nearly every mainstream camera brand out there, from Ricoh to Leica, Panasonic, Sony, Canon, Fuji, now Nikon. With all these cameras, I put such a high value on camera's color science until I started using things like the Color Checker Passport, which completely neutralized the colors to a more refined and correct color base, which for me I found to be a good starting point. With camera color science being completely pushed to the side, I was able to buy a camera based solely around the specs it provided. It seemed as though the camera was built just for me. The internal end log that was able to be recorded in this, to be able to shoot raw internally. I mean, you really can't ask for much more with very few cameras even offering this at this current moment. The fact that you're able to shoot 24 megapixel photos still with the insanely fast shutter rate if needed, although I've never actually needed it. Back into video, you're able to shoot at higher frame rates, uncropped, coming from Panasonic. That was one of the real big driving factors for me wanting to get out of that system, is just all the limitations that I felt like it had. Say you want to go into 60 frames, now you're in APS-C mode, and then you're shooting real estate, so now you have to buy an APS-C lens. When using the camera, I feel like the buttons and overall layout is really good on it. The buttons are nice, there's like a nice tactile press to them. The dials, they have a really nice feel to them. It feels nice and secure, locking lenses onto the camera. Everything just seems so well made on the body. The way that the memory card locks in, comparing it to, say, something like this Fuji, I mean, sometimes this memory card just pops open out of nowhere, and the comparison between build quality between the two is really easy to see when using the cameras back to back. They really put a lot of time and engineering into building a nice watertight camera. Now, going into the operation of the camera, the battery life is pretty good. You're able to get, I want to say, around 350 shots out of the camera in photo mode, and for video, it works for quite a while. I'm able to record for, I want to say, around 20-25 minutes in N-Log. With that being said, if I am out for quite a while, I will bring this and I can just charge this while it is in operation. This is just a cheap portable charger that I use typically for a phone. I found that the EVF on this camera is really quite good. It's high quality, it's nice and bright, you're able to see quite well on sunny days. And not only that, when coming from the Sony, my standards were just at the very bottom when it comes to screen quality. And the screen also delivers on this camera. It's nice and it feels like it's built well compared to the Sony, and the hinge on it is actually, it seems to be durable compared to the Sony, which is a major plus, especially when doing things like real estate photography, where if I don't want to be flipping in the screen every time I want to move the camera around. So to know it's a little more durable is a huge deal for me. While talking about the A7C II and the cheap build quality that it has, with it being so similar in price, especially now where the Z6III has had some budget cuts, it's a no-brainer which one to choose. that little bit of extra megapixel count with the A7C II really is not worth a switch. One thing that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of is their ISO dial and the function of switching it to auto ISO to regular ISO mode. It feels like you have to just kind of stretch your hands over in a little bit of a weird way. I do find it to be a little strange, the overall layout, but it's not too bad. The stack sensor is incredible. Post 1.10 update, it really remedied a lot of the issues people had with this camera. Noise to me hasn't been a massive issue. I try to keep it low when below the second native ISO, but the range between like 1200 ISO to around 5400 can be a bit noisy, so you should know that. However, from 6400 upwards, I believe to like around maybe 50,000, there's not that much noise. The stack sensor, it really has a fast readout speed, especially when paired to a CF Express Type B card, which these cards are amazing, let me just say. Like, I believe that the standard for these cards is around 1500 megabytes read and write speed, which is incredible. And the price is actually not bad compared to, say, what the Blackmagic Pocket 6K would use. The big issue, and the reason why a lot of people skip this camera, was the flickering. Now, with that being removed, I've done tests, so you can watch that on my channel if you want to look at the previous 1.10 update. I implore you to do so and just see that I think it's gone. Well, when I was shooting the video, it felt like I could see a little bit of flickering on the screen. However, in post-production, I couldn't see that same flickering. So I believe they've managed to fix it. Same update added things like shutter angle. So yeah, currently I'm shooting this right now at 180 degrees in shutter angle. So that just made the camera even more usable than it already was. I'm sure a lot of you don't own that great of computer systems. And this is where the 4K and 6K and RAW video that this shoots really shines. When I load it into DaVinci Timelines, it never stutters. It just plays so smoothly. I have a MacBook M1 Pro, and it just works so well on my system when I run it in DaVinci. There's never any stutters. I'm able to work on it just so smoothly, and this is even with a few browsers open sometimes. These RAW files seem to have quite a bit of range, and it's been nice to be able to edit them. I feel like you're able to make a lot of stylistic choices, and they don't seem to be that far off already in camera, although the color science isn't necessarily my favorite, so I still use the color checker passport in order to calibrate my colors before working on anything. And this is exactly what I would do if I wanted to calibrate the camera. I would just take something like this, and then I have a whole video on this on how to get perfect colors out of your camera, and then there you go. Now you'll have a neutral starting base. On top of these files being really easy to work on, they also have a good workflow if you're wanting to use their red LUTs. I mean, they pair really well with the camera, although it's not particularly the look that I like, but you do have monochrome modes, you have like bleach sort of looks, you have more of like neutral 709 bases, so something to definitely look into if that's something that interests you, especially if you have a red camera. I mean, if you want to pair the two, I've looked at comparisons, they're very close. Not only do you have access to a plethora of Nikon Z third-party manufactured lenses, you also have the ability, due to its short flange distance, to shoot Sony glass as well. And now Sony arguably has the most lenses available between Sony manufactured lenses, Sony Zeiss manufactured lenses, and other third-party manufacturers. They've opened the mount to literally everyone. So by picking Nikon Z lenses, you have access to almost every lens you could possibly want. Another thing a lot of people don't mention online is the lack of accessories that you have access to when shooting on a system like a Panasonic. Just something as simple as this, I'm able to quickly use my shutter from a distance, and it makes so much of a difference when shooting in fields like real estate photography and whatnot. Another thing that's a massive benefit when shooting Nikon cameras is the ability to have access to so many different types of strobes. Going again back to Panasonic, I wasn't able to use a lot of strobes unless it were through a universal hot shoe mount. So another big win for usability with the Nikon. So now, I've really been saying a lot of positives about this camera, and I mean all the positives that I've said. It's time to get into some of the negatives now with this camera. One thing that I have found that's a little weird when using my DJI Mic 2 with its transmitter plugged into the system, I do find that the audio sounds a little strange when routing the audio this way compared to if I were to record it directly through the microphone, or even with the Osmo Pocket 3. So if anyone knows why that may be, please let me know. One additional thing that I feel like this body is missing is the ability to spin the rear dial on it. Not being able to spin that, I feel like is a bit of a loss, although it's not too common on most camera bodies, but it's nice to be able to zoom into photos with the rear wheel if possible. One thing that particularly drives me insane is the mobile app on this camera. It just never seems to work and want to stay paired when using it. Coming from the Sony first off and the A7C II, it was able to connect so seamlessly. It would remember the device, and I would just have to wait for its connection, and then I could monitor and then also use remote photo feature on it really easily. I could review photos. There was never a problem with that. And one thing that Sony actually offered was the ability to be able to change camera modes in the app. You cannot do that in this one. So not only does the camera constantly disconnect when using the app, you also can't change the camera modes to custom modes. Sorry, I'm talking about custom modes that you're creating in the dial menu, like the C1, C2, C3 options, which are particularly useful when shooting things like real estate photography. I guess I should explain my use of these custom modes and why it's beneficial to do it on the phone. I shoot a lot of flambient photography, so I'm doing my initial C1 HDR burst, and then I'll be switching over to a flash photo as well. So these both have different modes, so by being able to switch between C1 and C2, that just makes a more seamless switch between these operations. And now it not being offered on the app is a huge letdown, and I don't know for the life of me why no other manufacturers allow you to change custom modes on their app, except for Sony. So if there's one thing to learn is that Sony's app is the best out of them all. Even Canon's app using the RP worked better than with this new Nikon. So Nikon, you have to step up your game with this app. At this day and age, I don't understand why camera phone apps haven't been improved, especially with all the money they're making. It really just needs a lot more development time than it's getting currently. So please, I really wish I could think of more negative things to tell people about this camera, because I haven't found many at all. This camera has truly swept me off my feet. I really wish I could find more negatives about this camera, but there really aren't many. This is truly a great camera that I think will work for almost everyone that wants to shoot photo and video professionally. Nikon really hit it out of the park with the Nikon Z6III, and I'm surprised. am not a camera loyalist, as you could imagine. I will jump ship so fast. I have no allegiance to any company. I don't care at all, especially now that I'm using neutral color bases in order to use my cameras. Color science doesn't matter. So as long as Nikon's not releasing cameras that are completely crippled like a lot of other manufacturers, I'm all in. I just hope that they keep updating this camera, because there's a few things that need to be changed with it, but there's so few things that need to be added or updated with this, because it just works awesome. Well, that's it. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts on this camera, please let me know. And stay tuned for the next one, and subscribe if you liked it or found any of this useful. Thank you. Bye.